What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Gila Monster Rides. I'm going to try to make this a short video and explain something that happened with Francine yesterday. Unfortunately, Francine had a major catastrophic event. and I'm laughing because I think this is a fixable thing, but we will find out as we dig into what we find as we start pulling parts off Francine. So yesterday I went on a 260-mile ride, and 220 miles into that, she broke down on the side of the highway, and I had to get a tow for the 40 miles back to the house. Very unfortunate. And on this channel, I don't want to just present to you guys all the time all of the good stuff and like hype up everything I do to the bike. Sometimes stuff is gonna break, and something broke yesterday. So let me run down to you what kind of went through the day. I'm not gonna like cover everything, but I'm just gonna give you the nitty-gritty. I rode from my house to a mountain up in Southeast Arizona. It's actually, I think it's the tallest in Southeast Arizona. It's a little bit taller than Mount Lemmon. You've seen me ride the Mount Lemmon Highway. And I'm sorry about the glare on my glasses. The sun is pointing at me currently, so there's going to be a little bit of glare on my sunglasses, or glasses. These are sunglasses, actually. They're photochromatic, so they change when I'm outside. Any case, when I got to Willcox, which is shortly before you turn north to head towards Mount Graham, is the mountain that I was going up. And I got a lot of great footage of Mount Graham, riding up the mountain, back down the mountain. It was a really interesting ride. It is not one you can ride fast, or at least I'm not a very big canyon carving rider. I guess I would like to be, but and I was definitely sometimes going a little pushing the speed limit, but it is hairpin turn after hairpin turn going up the mountain, which is like really fun. But in any case, when I got to Willcox, which is just before you turn north from Interstate 10 up to head up to Mount Graham, I noticed that wait a minute, what was I going to do? I got there, I was going to fill up, and when I got there, I noticed Francine's oil was really low. Like, I could not see it in the sight window. So I immediately went and put oil, and I couldn't see any oil on the bike. I just thought, maybe, man, I haven't been paying attention to the oil level. Felt like a dummy, and I filled her up, and I stopped in, and I couldn't get what I wanted to put in, my usual AMS oil. But they did have some K&N motorcycle oil, and it was really hot that day, so I put in like just over a quart. Now, I can't remember off the top of my head, but the Royal Enfield takes well more than a quart, so I definitely had some oil in the motorcycle. It was just low. It was below the bottom level in the sight window. But just a tiny hair over a quart brought her back to where the sight window was like towards the full mark. So probably less than a quarter would have actually worked, or less than a quart, I'm sorry. In any case, headed up to Mount Graham, went up Mount Graham, came home, or I started heading towards home, and it was really, really windy out when I got down from the mountain. There's not a lot of cover there. There's a lot of open ground, no trees, once you start heading back south towards Willcox. And around Willcox, there are freaking no trees, and it was super windy. So I noticed that the bike wasn't performing like it normally did, but I thought maybe it's just the wind, something like that. And in case, got to Willcox and filled up again and headed towards home because I was getting tired. I should have checked the oil level again, but I thought after just filling it, wouldn't be much of an issue, right? Well, in any case, I made it. Sorry, there's a hawk passing by. We have a family of Harris hawks. If I don't think that's ever made it on video. I talked about it on a video that I ended up scrapping. Anyway, ADHD moment. Let's get back on track. I made it 24 miles back towards Tucson on I-10 from Willcox before Francine decided to lose pretty much all power, and I died on the side of the road. Got it back home, and what I have found so far, because it was blistering hot this morning, I needed to take my truck into the shop, so I was busy with that half the day. And by the time I got back to look at the Classic 350, it was just really hot. So this afternoon, once some clouds rolled in, I at least have done like a bit of a cursory search. What happened on the side of the road is I found out that that quart that I had put in was completely gone. Now, where did it go? Well, it seems that most of it ended up on the left-hand side of the crankcase, kind of around where the kickstand and the center stand mount, which makes me think, and then the fact that, like from the spray, a little bit of spray you can see, there's not a lot of it, but there is some. I'm thinking that the seal at, like behind the front sprocket, I think that the oil was blowing out there. And also I opened up the air box and pulled out the DNA air filter. There was a lake of oil inside my air box that I cleaned out. What was funny was inside the DNA air filter, there was no oil. Like I stuck my clean finger in there, wiped the inside of the filter, no oil. Pulled the whole assembly out, there's oil. It's just soaked all over the air filter. And that's when I can see this lake of oil inside my air box. It was a considerable amount. So where did that come from? Well, as a part of that, I kind of started mopping that up. And I took a clean paper towel, and with the whole air filter assembly out, I was able to put the paper towel up into the intake towards the throttle body. That was all clean. So like no oil was coming through from the intake side of the engine, which is very good. The other big clue that I remembered from yesterday is at no point did I ever see any color smoke coming from my exhaust. So that leads me to somewhat logical conclusion that there was an overpressure event inside my crankcase. What's caused that? I don't know. Has this been a chronic thing where it finally, just on this long, kind of more difficult ride, hot, going faster, it's 60 miles basically from my house to Willcox, and I really wasn't pushing it too hard though. Like I was probably just doing 75 most of the way, and a little bit slower on some of the hills because there's a lot of traffic and there were trucks in the way, and so I was mostly just happy to do 75. So I wasn't anywhere near the rev limiter in fifth gear. We'll get to that in another episode. There's a couple of frustrating things with the bike, with the tachometer and the speedometer. Everybody knows about the speedometer issues with some of the early Classic 350s. Well, I'm starting to suffer those problems. In any case, when the tachometer was working, I was mainly running about 5,000 RPM, maybe as high as 5,500 when I was really pushing it. So I'm nowhere near the rev limiter limit. So what caused the overpressure event in the crankcase? We don't know yet. But I suspect that it's come out around where the front sprocket is. That goes to your counterbalance shaft. I believe your stator is in there too. So somewhere in there, that has where I think where the pressure built up and pushed oil out of there, and then through the crankcase breather hose, which goes up to your airbox, which put all that oil into my airbox. Okay, so next steps. Well, I'm going to make sure that nothing bad happened to the top end of the motorcycle. Now, I don't think it didn't ever seize on me. So, and the fact that there was no smoke of any color ever coming from the exhaust, and the top end never got hot, really. Not certainly exceedingly hot. The color never changed on the header, and I was still able to touch like my valve cover. So I don't think it burned up the top end, but what we're going to do is we're going to pull the spark plug, and I have a bore inspection camera that I can connect to my phone, and we're going to stick that down the spark plug hole, and I'm going to, as long as the piston isn't seized, I have it up on the center stand. We're going to rotate the wheel in like maybe third, fourth, fifth gear so that I can get that piston all the way down. I'm going to inspect the piston, the top of the piston. And this isn't a very great bore camera. Picture's okay, but it's hard to turn around and look at stuff. But I will try to inspect the entire cylinder wall as much as I can inspect. And if I can turn it, I might have to take it out, put a little hook in it. I'm going to also try to like look on the underside of that head towards the valves. As long as that looks all good, and the spark plug doesn't have a whole bunch of oil on it, then we know probably I haven't eaten the piston or the rings. I think I don't know what that's going to look like, to be honest. I don't think that I had a catastrophic top end failure. I think this was at the lower end, and I think that possibly the bike cut the power with the oil loss. So still the question remains, what caused overpressure in the crankcase? We'll find out. In any case, cheers. So I just want to be transparent with you guys. Like, not everything is always hunky-dory and spectacular with everything I'm doing with the bike. This is the first real big setback though. So thanks for joining me. Say a little prayer for Francine, and I'll let you know what I find out when I get to inspect her.